Dhira dhira jano piyo piyakaro nirmasaro purito. Sri Chaitanya Kripa Bhura Bhuvibhavo Paravahatarako Sri Chaitanya Kripa Bhuvibhavo Paravahatarako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujago Shri Jiva. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are always engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and dancing. They are just like the ocean of love of God, and they are popular both with the gentle and with the ruffians, because they are not envious of anyone. Whatever they do, they are all pleasing to everyone, and they are fully blessed by Lord Chaitanya. Thus they are engaged in missionary activities meant to deliver all the conditioned souls in the material universe. Nana Shastra Vishadanaika Nipano Sadharma Sangstapako Nana Shastra Vichadanaika Nipano Sadharma Sangstapako Lokanam hitakarana tribhuvane manyo sharanyakaro Lokanam hitakarana manyo sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajanana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghushago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghushago Shri Jiva Gopalako I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktati Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschacharishataine Namaste Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is it on? Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Gauranga. All glories to the Prabhupada. Nam Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Pashtaya Vitale Shmati. Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste. Saraswate Devi Gauravani Vicharane Nivasesha Srinivadi Pasti Charveshatani. So, welcome to devotees this evening to hear a little bit about the glories of Srila Jiva Goswami, who in our parampara, our disciplic succession, is, I don't know if this is going to reach, it's not. What are we going to do? I'll hold it like this, maybe, let's see. One of the famous 6 Goswamis of Sri Vrindavan Dham, the youngest of the Goswamis, it said that normally understood that he appeared in this world around 1513. 1513? Yeah. 1513. Just over 100 years past. Oh, that's clever. As the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan. As you may know, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, having taken sannyas, desiring to travel to Vrindavan, had passed through Bengal on his way, and particularly Ramkeli, the hub where Rupa and Sanatan were living as ministers of the Nawab Hussain Shah. They were very prominent ministers in his government, and the king was more or less depending upon them, a Muslim king. At that time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had requested Rupa and Sanatan to join him and gave them certain guidelines, goals, directions, instructions to go to Vrindavan and there to establish the lost places of Krishna's pastimes, to uncover those pastime places, to establish temples, to publish or produce literatures explaining the pure bhakti shastri, the pure teaching of bhakti, and to establish the process, the guidance, giving guidance to devotees on the path of deity worship and other aspects of sadhana, etc. So immediately they couldn't both leave, but Rupa, the younger of the 2 brothers, at that time very wealthy, like the treasurer in the kingdom. He retired from his post together with his younger brother Anupam. The two of them traveled to Vrindavan to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They missed him there, but they did catch him as Mahaprabhu was returning to Puri, and they met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. But however, Anupam passed away on the banks of the river Ganges. He left this world. Anupam, the younger brother of Rupa, did have a child. The young boy Jiva was very, very young at that time. Some histories say that he actually had the opportunity to meet Mahaprabhu and was able to, anyway, suckle his toe or something. Different stories of it. And he grew up, and when he heard that his father had left his body, young Jiva was very distraught and felt like no interest in this world. He became very detached from this material world and desired to leave home. He was still very, very young, not even a teenager practically, but as soon as possible, he took this opportunity also to leave home, and he went to Navadvip, and there he met with Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda is a very famous this pastime. You can see this account in the Bhakti Ratnakar and other places of how Nityananda Prabhu took Jiva Goswami on tour of Navadvip and showed young Jiva the various places of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. They met several of the Lord's associates who were still residing there in Navadvip. This way, Jiva Goswami literally was given a view of the transcendental abode and the association of Mahaprabhu by the grace of Nityananda. By the grace of Nityananda, we can receive the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Jiva Goswami recognized Nityananda as his worshipable Lord. When Jiva was very young, he was worshipping Lord Balaram, and he recognized Nityananda as non-different than that very Lord Balaram whom he worshipped. So in this way, he was inspired by Lord Nityananda, who sent young Jiva on to Vrindavan, and there, on the way, he was given the direction. Also, Jiva had a very special mission. Like his elder brothers and the other Goswamis, the same, but particularly Jiva Goswami was in the realm of scholastic studies and literature production. He produced or wrote many very, very significant Vaishnava literatures. But first, after leaving Navadvip on his way to Vrindavan, he stopped off at Varanasi, and there he took guidance from a very great Sanskrit scholar in Varanasi, Vaishnav Sanskrit scholar. He became extremely learned in Sanskrit and also other languages. Being a very, very great scholar. In fact, to this very day, in the Varanasi, Banaras Sanskrit University, there is a wing of the Sanskrit University there which is dedicated, named after Jiva Goswami. I remember back in 1972 in London, we were young devotees in the temple, but there was an exhibition in the University of London, the department, Oriental and Asian Studies department. They had an exhibition of the works and writings of Rupa and Jiva Goswami. And they had a big banner across the door of the works of these two great Vaishnavas. And it said, two of the greatest philosophers the world has ever known. That was the University of London had recognized this. Jiva Goswami was especially known as the topmost philosopher, not only of that age, but of other, we could say, practically speaking, of all time. In terms especially as he presented, very famous presentation, perhaps the most famous of all Jiva's compilations, which establishes beyond doubt the Srimad Bhagavatam as the topmost literature and the path of Bhakti as the topmost path leading to the topmost objective goal, and establish Gaudiya Vaishnavism as the path of perfection. He compiled these Sandarbhas, the 6 Sandarbhas, there were 7 altogether, which contain the essential philosophy of Vaishnavism in every aspect. You may or may not have come across them or studied them, but the whole philosophy is explained in a very, very clear, philosophical and conclusive way in this compilation. Scholars recognize the Sandarbhas as being probably the most conclusive Vaishnava literature that's been produced, practically speaking, on the actual the various tattvas or truths of spirituality. So he was very, very prominent in this field. He wrote over 400,000 eventually throughout his life, over 400,000 Sanskrit verses he compiled various ways, in the Sandarbhas being his biggest compilation. But many others too, Gopal Champu and many other literatures which Jiva Goswami produced on the order of Mahaprabhu and the request of his Goswami brothers, Rupa and Sanatan. When he arrived eventually in Vrindavan, at that time both Sanatan and Rupa were residing there. They both retired by that time. And Jiva approached his eldest brother Sanatan, requesting initiation. But Sanatan Goswami all the Goswamis were emblems of humility. He directed him towards Rupa. Rupa Goswami, although Sanatan was senior and Rupa would look up to him like his own spiritual master practically. Nonetheless, it was Rupa's role or responsibility amongst the Goswamis to be in many ways the leader or the most prominent. Therefore, all those in our particular disciplic succession are considered to be Rupa Anugas, followers of Rupa Goswami. And Jiva was the next in line, basically speaking, as far as the next in parampara. Being younger, he was present in the world after the departure of Rupa and Sanatan. And he was next in line in disciplic succession. Siksha line, but in this case Diksha, because Jiva Goswami did take initiation from Rupa. Generally a line is Siksha, is a line of instructions coming down, just like Jiva Goswami. After Jiva Goswami, the next in line, our disciplic succession, Narottam Das, for instance, Srinivas, they were disciples, particularly Narottam was disciple of Jiva, but not by Diksha, only by Siksha. Jiva Goswami did not give Diksha to anyone. He only gave Siksha. Rupa Goswami only gave Diksha to Jiva. Diksha was not something which was, so to speak, something which was a prominent or an institutionalized relationship. The relationship was through Siksha, accepting the spiritual master through Siksha as one's life and soul. And even in the line of Diksha, that is the primary, you can say, the primary life or the primary energy or the strength of that relationship is through Siksha. Not just the official Diksha initiation, but it's the Siksha which gives the relationship life, or where one gets life from, through the Siksha. So Jiva Goswami, Jiva, the living force or the living entity, he served under Rupa before he took initiation. Rupa tested him quite severely, actually, to see how sincere, and to show, of course, there's no question of insincerity. The Goswamis are all eternal associates of the Lord in Krishna Lila, different Manjaris, associates of Lalita Devi, her party of amongst the intimate gopis, the Astasakis. They're in Lalita Devi's group, and Manjari is serving there under the guidance of Rupa Manjari particularly. And Jiva Goswami also, I'm not sure, I've forgotten which Manjari he is. Maybe some of you remember. But he served there in his sadhaka rupa, his form in this world, assisting his elder brothers in so many ways. So Rupa Goswami tested him, he engaged him in menial service, various assisting. It's like you have here the BBT, didn't have an official BBT, but it was the same principle, writing and producing literatures. Those days there was no printing press as we have now, none of the machinery or the technology we have now, everything handwritten, written on palm leaves, and quite something compared to today, where we have mass publications, everything done very on a grand scale and with modern technology. But then it was handwritten, and there were no Google searches, there were no databases, there were nothing of the sort, no search, nothing, no methodology. Everything had to be more or less reading, studying scriptures, handwritten scriptures, and I don't know how to remember. We're hearing today how when one gets a little older in life, it's hard. It's hard even to edit literature because one has to be consistent in one's editing, and one has to remember how one edited a section in the beginning, and with the same policy, the same principle as one goes through the text. Not that we forget the previous principle and employ another one. It takes a lot of concentration, a lot of memory, etc. to do that. So you can imagine their memory. These great. Tomorrow's is the appearance or disappearance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur tomorrow? Which is it? Does anyone know? Yeah. Disappearance tomorrow? Another appearance, so a wonderful event. The appearance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When we look at the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which we'll hopefully, if we're able, we'll look at tomorrow, and we'll see. It's inconceivable how the literatures which Bhaktivinoda Thakur produced amongst all the other incredible services he performed, how is it possible for a human being, which he's not in one sense, of course, but from a human angle, impossible for a person to produce such literatures. It's just inconceivable, absolutely inconceivable. Completely empowered, directly in contact with the Supreme Personality of God, without a doubt. The same with Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, all of the pure devotees of the Lord. Our Srila Prabhupada, interesting story back in around about 1990 something, I don't know which year, but there was a very big threat on Bhaktivedanta Manor regarding the continuation of the worship in the manor. There was a big protest by the local population of the village and other residents of the neighborhood to try to stop the worship which was going on at back, not the internal but the external, in other words, public worship, trying to stop the public worship. It was went right up to the Houses of Parliament, which means the government house, and there they were debating what to do or discussing what to do. It went to the Queen of England. The Queen of England was also involved in the decision on this case. It was a very big case. Hundreds of thousands of Indians were in the street protesting. It was a big thing. And, it really was. It was big news. In far as religious freedom, you could say, was concerned, it was a big precedential case. And the Queen in the Houses of Parliament, she has her representative called the Queen's Council. This is a gentleman at that time who represents the Queen in Parliament. And he gives the Queen's, opinion, impression, or whatever it may be called. So he was also trying to understand what's going on here. And it was Shivaram Swami actually, he called Shivaram Swami, who was the GBC of England at that time. He wanted to discuss with him and find out more, let's say, on the other side, not just on the protest of the villagers or the complaint of the villagers, but what is the ISKCON line? What is it? Where do we stand? What are we actually doing? He didn't, Hare Krishnas. Other than the Indians, nobody really knew what we were, what we were doing. So Shivaram Swami went to see him, and the man looked at Shivaram Swami. Obviously, more of a conversation was there. He looked at him and he said, "You do not know what a great thing your teacher has done." I said, "What the man said?" And Shivaram Swami didn't know what to say. Very difficult question, very difficult comment, expecting an answer. "Yes, of course I do. Of course I do." And his disciple, how can you say that? How do you know what a great thing he's done? You've never seen him, you're not following him, you're eating meat, you're smoking or drinking. How on earth do you know what a great thing my teacher has done? And if you say no, whichever way, it may not look very good, you're disagreeing with a man, so what to do? He didn't really answer, usual Indian sort of yes, no kind of a response. The man repeated, saying that, "No, you do not understand what I mean when I say that." I said, "I'll explain you why." He said, "Because you are still a young man in your 40s. I'm also well in my 70s. I know what it's like when I'm in my 70s. And I can tell you frankly, it is not possible for an ordinary person to do what your spiritual teacher has done. It is impossible. Not possible. Humanly impossible." Why? Why is he speaking like this? Because he'd actually read the Prabhupada Lilamrita. He thought, "I'll better find out about these people, what they're doing." He was your ever well-wisher, I think. He just read that book and came to the conclusion, this is not an ordinary human being. This person is superhuman. So he was very impressed, to say the least, how great Srila Prabhupada is. So these personalities, they're not of this world. They come from the spiritual realm. They bring, as we hear in Bhagavad Gita, they're supposed to approach someone who has seen the truth. Not just someone who's heard about the truth, that's also good, but someone who's seen the truth. We have the same experience when you've actually been somewhere. Say we've been to wherever it may be, Hawaii. It's a little different. If you've been there, or you've spent time there, you've experienced Hawaii, than somebody who just heard about it, which is also, of course, is not wrong, but it's different between knowledge and realization. So someone who has realized that truth, somebody who's actually seeing the truth, in Krishna says, they've actually got that vision, and they see the truth. They're explaining what they're seeing. It's not like scrabbling around when we ask a question, trying to remember an answer. Krishna's kindness, an answer comes, and we try to. But it's like we're trying to remember Krishna. They never forget Krishna. They're always with Krishna. Krishna's right there with them every moment. So Jiva Goswami is like this. Oh, Bhakti Vinod, Srila Prabhupada. They're coming from the spiritual realm. Avatar. In the spiritual realm. To bring that opportunity for us to associate. So to this very day, as Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my books. I'm fully present in these books. All my ecstasies are in these books. They're present there in their teachings, in their siksha. So associating with these great personalities, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in, I think, Bhakti Aloka, one of his compilations, that if we want to develop the qualities required, positive qualities required for devotional service, like enthusiasm and confidence, and patience and so on. A major, by hearing about Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Haridas Thakur, and so on. By the way, the day after Friday is the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur. We have a very big week, and Saturday is Vishvarup Mahotsav, the day when Lord Chaitanya, when Srila Prabhupada accepted the sannyas order of life. It's also Purnima, Bhadra Purnima. So it's a big day on Saturday. Every day this week is wonderful. Every day festival. So today, Jiva Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said one can develop by hearing about these personalities. It helps us develop confidence. Or courage, uses the word courage, determination or enthusiasm, and tushta, one can be very satisfied just by hearing. Just like an ordinary person may feel some pleasure temporarily or relief or something on hearing about one of their heroes. They may have a material hero, I don't know, in Sweden. But we see a lot of people, they have different heroes. Maybe it's Harry Potter or something, I don't know. Some kind of, maybe even a fictional person. But some heroic, people need heroes. But these are the great heroes. The great heroes, the spiritual warriors, the spiritual heroes, so to speak. They come into this world to give. It's like when we associate with somebody, like a child with their father, they feel very confident and fearless almost in the presence of their parents. And similarly, in the presence of these great personalities, we always keep them in our hearts. Just like Prabhupada said when he went to America, he never forgot his spiritual master. He was always at the lotus feet of it. So he was always fearless. Prabhupada's very name, Abhay Charanavinda, fearless. We take shelter of their lotus feet. Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada said, is our Siksha Guru. The Goswamis are our primary Siksha Gurus. We have others, a whole line of disciplic succession down to the present day. Individual devotees may also, to some extent, be passing on that same Siksha to us. But the Siksha is really entering into our line, especially through Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, the 6 Goswamis like this. They've documented this Siksha in such a way that anyone, anytime who applies this Siksha in their life will be connected to the Supreme Lord through the Parampara. So one of the aspects of that is the spiritual master tests the disciple. So Rupa tested Jiva in so many menial services, and Jiva Goswami was completely submissive. It's not just a question of being a learned scholar. It's the attitude which counts. So in this way, a lesson being taught, Jiva showed the correct attitude of a disciple to be eligible to actually receive transcendental knowledge. I remember in Vrindavan, I've told this a few days ago as well actually, in about 1990, this was in Vrindavan, I was staying there for quite some time. And Ayendra Prabhu, the famous Kirtanier, quite a, sometimes people maybe see a little controversial, whatever, but he established the 24-hour Harinam Sankirtan program in the Krishna Balaram Mandir and maintained it to the day he left the world, and it continues to this day. But he had a test in those days. Of course, it was not the same as the test that Jiva Goswami underwent for initiation, but it was the same principle. He would test anyone who wanted to come onto the 24-hour kirtan program. It wasn't like, here I am, I'm a very good harmonium player. I'm sure you'll be very happy to have me on the 24-hour kirtan. By the way, I sing very nicely. Devotees told me that when I was, at some kirtan mela or something. No, he had a test, and the test was quite an interesting one. Of course, he was only dealing with those in male bodies on the 24-hour kirtan. He didn't deal with those. They could come for the program, but he didn't deal with them, those in female bodies. But those in male bodies who wanted to actually join the party, which meant living in the ashram with the 24-hour kirtanias, had to wait about 3 months before they were allowed on the program. They would have to clean all the toilets in the Gurukul building of the Brahmachari ashram for 3 months, morning and night. That was the test. And if they didn't take that test, he said, you haven't got the right attitude. You have to show that you've got a menial, humble attitude. This is what evokes the Lord's mercy. To really become, say, a recipient, a qualified recipient of the Lord's mercy, or the realization of the knowledge, the truth, Gyan, become Vigyan. So in the case, similar thing, Rupa Goswami showed there needs to be a test for aspiring disciples like this. And there was an interesting case here, another test he gave him. Once one traveling scholar, Rup Narayan Saraswati, different accounts are there, they describe it differently. We'll just tell one of the accounts that are there. Came to Vrindavan, he was on a mission, this Rup Narayan, to be established as the most learned scholar in the whole of India. And he used to carry a Jaya Patra. Jaya Patra is a victory, like a victory scroll. And each time he would defeat a scholar, they would have to sign it. I submit to Rup Narayan, who's, has defeated me like that. So he came to Vrindavan, specifically having heard that there was these great scholars there. Rupa and Sanatan were most famous amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas at the time as the greatest scholars. So this Rupa Narayan came there and challenged them. Well, they didn't really take up the challenge. We're not at all qualified to debate with you. We're nobody. If you've heard anything about us, believe us. Believe us. It is a total exaggeration. Whatever people are saying, we're not really at all qualified to talk with such a great personality as you. So he said, all right, if you feel like that, you sign this Jayapatra. And so they quickly signed it, and off he went. Their real reasoning was, we don't want to waste our time with a wrangling philosopher like this, who's just on a mission to establish himself as something great. It's not our business to deal with such things like this. A waste of time. So they just packed him off, basically. And so he was very proud that he defeated Rupa and Sanatan, going here and there. So he came, and Jiva Goswami, he heard then there was another great relative of Rupa and Sanatan named Jiva, also in Vrindavan, who was becoming equally famous, practically speaking. So then he went to Jiva and explained, your uncle have both signed this Jayapatra. If you please put your signature here, then I'll be on my way. Well, Jiva Goswami was enraged when he saw this. How dare you insult my uncles like this? This is completely offensive. He immediately challenged him. And after 7 days, it was quite a debate. The man was quite learned. But after 7 days, Jiva Goswami clearly defeated him And the man was somewhat humiliated like this. And Jiva Goswami went to Rupa and Sanatan with joy almost, expressing that actually now he's put things correct and that this Rup Narayan was no way in comparison to the spiritual masters of Jiva. Rupa Goswami became quite upset with his disciple and said, "You have taken the sannyas order of life prematurely. You have prematurely taken the renounced order of life." It wasn't official sannyas. Renounced order of life. Prematurely. Because anger has arisen in your heart and you've humiliated another personality like this Rup Narayan. This is not the business of a renunciate, especially a Gaudiya renunciate. So, you have to leave. You're not qualified to stay in Vrindavan. You have to leave Vrindavan now. And Rupa Goswami expelled him from Vrindavan. He had to leave Vrindavan over this incident. Seems quite harsh. Lesson being taught here. Maybe a little hard to decipher the lesson, but it is a very serious lesson being taught here. You can see it from different angles, no doubt. In fact, Jiva was completely correct on the real level of it, in one sense, but he's teaching a lesson through his disciple. So Jiva Goswami left Vrindavan and went to stay in Mathura. For quite some time he was living in Mathura, basically living very, very, as simple as you could possibly live, living literally on nothing, like physically speaking. Living in a hollow of a tree, sometimes it said a snake hole, a snake cave, different comments are there. And eating out of a skull, there are different comments there about what he did. And he lived there very simply on whatever little provisions came his way. And he was very, very repentant and feeling, how he committed an offense to his gurus by stepping over them, so to speak, more or less, becoming proud, whatever he was thinking, but he was just seeing himself like that, a very humble way. And after some time, Sanatana Goswami said to Rupa Goswami, "My dear brother," because he was senior, so he could say, "You're not following Lord Chaitanya's cardinal teachings. That means his primary teachings." And Rupa said, "What do you mean? I'm not following Lord Chaitanya's teachings." And Sanatana said, "Well, let us read through these teachings. And when we come to the one you're not following, I'll tell you." So they were reading the teachings of what they'd written, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Wherever it was from, I don't know, but they were reading the teachings. And, the three cardinal, you could say, or let's say, in terms of categorization of the teachings, in terms of service, are under the titles of Vaishnava Seva. Vaishnava Seva, Nama Seva, and third one? What's the third one? Service to all the Jivas. Jiva Seva. So he said, "You're not doing this." Jiva Himsa means being offensive or cruel to the Jiva. So devotees are always thinking of how to enlighten the Jivas. So it was a pun on words, as we say, as Jiva Goswami, as you're being cruel to Jiva. So Rupa laughed, immediately brought him back to Vrindavan. And there they stayed for many years. Of course, Goswamis spent time in Vrindavan. After some time, they all unmanifested pastimes and moved along. Jiva Goswami was still there. He became very famous. He was the most prominent. He had many Shiksha disciples, as we mentioned already, specifically Narottam Das, Shyamananda Pandit, and Srinivasacharya were his three main disciples. And our Sankirtan movement, basically, as far as dissemination of the literature, Jiva Goswami was the first one who really made it official by sending his disciples to Bengal on that famous journey, with carrying the Goswami's literatures and so on and so forth. The journey went on. It was a long story, which we won't tell. But he empowered them to both absorb themselves and to imbibe everything about the Goswami's teachings themselves, and to take those teachings and spread them everywhere. They would have to rewrite all the literatures wherever they went, if perhaps another copy was required. I mean, we can hardly imagine what it would be like if we had to do that today. If you go on the streets of Stockholm with Swedish Bhagavad Gita and say, even if you convince the other person, then you say to them, well, you have to have your own copy of this book. Here's a pen, and here's 1,000 sheets of paper. You write it yourself. I don't think anyone would do it. Even devotees probably wouldn't do it. It's a tremendous thing. Anyway, it's time for Arti. But last little thing, there are other things. But he also, of course, is famous for establishing the Radha Damodar temple. And the temples in Vrindavan, many of the temples in Vrindavan, one has to give credit to one Muslim leader at the time, Akbar, who had a soft spot for the teachings of the Goswamis very strongly, especially Jiva. And he heard about Jiva's greatness and he wanted to see him. Akbar came to Vrindavan. Jiva Goswami took him into the Nindavan, the forest there in Vrindavan. And in Nindavan forest, by the grace of Jiva, Akbar had a vision. It doesn't describe exactly, but a transcendental vision which changed his life. And he immediately wanted to, let's say, reciprocate. So he made all arrangements for Jiva Goswami and other temples to be built there in Vrindavan. He was a supporter, you could say, on that platform of the agenda or the mission of the Goswamis. So anyway, Jiva Goswami in this way was following in the footsteps of his brothers and presenting Krishna consciousness. And today we follow that line and the teachings of Jiva and so on and so forth. So we have to finish now. It's time for Arti. If you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada makes some commentaries about some criticisms which were aimed at Jiva Goswami, that he was contradicting his elder brothers. He would seem to be emphasizing Svakiya Bhav over and above Parakiya. Why? Because so many people were misusing or misunderstanding this Parakiya Ras entirely and trying to imitate it and misunderstanding and so on. So he put more emphasis on Svakiya in some of his writings to protect the sanctity of Parakiya Ras, etc. Some others commentaries that he became disturbed with Krishnadas Kaviraj and so on when he produced Chaitanya Charitamrita or other literatures, different things. Some different criticisms are there that he threw his literature into the well or something. These are all bogus accusations, different bogus accusations are there. And this is always there. Somebody will look for faults and criticize. The Vaishnavas carry on as the caravan. As the dogs bark, the caravan passes by. So the truth of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism continues by the grace of Jiva Goswami to this very day. And Srila Prabhupada took that same principle, producing the books we have today, based on the teachings of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti and others. Most authoritative, authentic presentation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Prema Nadi. His samadhi is there in the Radha Damodar temple. You can see in the back when you go behind the temple, there's a samadhi area. And there is the samadhi of Jiva Goswami. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.